Спасибо.
Thank you.
Уважаемые коллеги,
Colleagues,
Россия уже давно на переднем рубеже борьбы с террором.
Russia has long been fighting at the forefront of the war on terror. We are fighting for justice, happiness, the future of our people and entire civilization. We are familiar with the aggression of international terrorism. Russia first faced it in the mid-90s. And the people of Russia, when the people of Russia were target of terrorist attacks, we remember Budyonnovsk, Beslan, terrorist attacks in Moscow, Nevsky Express, bombing, terrorist attacks in Domodedovo airport and in the Moscow metro. Those attacks took away thousands of lives, and we will always remember what happened back then. It took us almost 10 years to defeat terrorists. We basically forced them to leave Russia. We drove them out of our country, but we are still fighting some remaining cells. And still, from time to time, we face terrorism. We had terrorist attacks in Volgograd a couple of years ago. Just recently, a Russian civilian plane was bombed over the Sinai Peninsula. It is impossible to defeat international terrorism alone, especially when borders are open and the world is witnessing mass movements of population from country to country. And in a situation where terrorists receive financial support on a massive scale, we haven't resolved the issue of Afghanistan. The situation in Afghanistan is far from promising, and countries in the Middle East like Iraq, Libya and Syria, who looked actually quite good only recently, are now areas of anarchy posing a threat to the whole world. And we know why that happened. We know who it was who decided to change the regimes in those countries and impose their own rules. So they got us into this mess. They destroyed those states, and then they distanced themselves away from the situation there, opening the way for terrorists and extremists. Terrorists in Syria pose a special threat. Many people there from Russia and other CIS countries, they receive money and weapons. They build up their forces, and if they win there in Syria, sooner or later they will come to Russia as well and will continue with their terrorist activities here. We have to be prepared, and we have to defeat and eliminate them before they get here. This is why we made a decision to launch this military operation based on a request from the legitimate government of Syria. Our forces fight in Syria for Russia. They fight for the security of our people, first and foremost. Our army and our air force have demonstrated their efficiency. Russian armed forces are effective, and we will use this experience to further enhance our military capabilities. We are grateful to our engineers, our workers, everybody who works at our defense factories. In fighting terrorism, Russia acted with extreme responsibility. Our decisive action was supported by the people of Russia. Our people understand the total threat that comes from terrorism. Their position is patriotic and moral. I strongly believe that we need to protect our heritage, our culture, our history. We need to learn from the lessons of the past, and we see historic parallels in the 20th century, when people were not willing to join their forces to fight Nazism. They had to pay in lives of tens of millions of innocent people for that. Today we face this new barbaric ideology, and we cannot allow these people to achieve their goals. We should set aside all our differences and join our forces in one united anti-terrorist front that would act based on international law and under the United Nations. Every civilized nation today has to make a contribution to defeating terrorism. We don't need declarations. We need specific action. This means there should be no safe havens for terrorists, no double standard, no contact with any terrorist organization, no attempts to play them, to use them to achieve your purposes. We know who it is that profits in Turkey by letting terrorists sell the oil they stole. The terrorists use this money to recruit new members, to plan new terrorist attacks against our people, people of France, Mali, and other countries. It was in Turkey that terrorists from the North Caucasus used to find safe havens, and some of them are still there. Yet the people of Turkey are kind and talented. They like to work. We have a lot of good friends in Turkey, and they should know that we do not equate those people and some of the ruling elite in Turkey who are directly responsible for the deaths of our servicemen in Turkey. We will never remember what they did, how they helped terrorists. We have always considered betrayal the most ignoble act. Those who backstabbed our pilots in Turkey should remember about that. Those who tried to justify terrorists should remember about that. I don't even understand why they did it. Any questions, any problems, any differences, maybe we were not even aware of them, but there were other ways to resolve them. We were open to cooperate with Turkey on most sensitive issues. We were ready to go as far as their allies even were not willing to do. Only Allah knows why they did it, I guess. And I guess Allah decided to punish the ruling clique in Turkey by stripping it of their sanity. But we will not respond in a nervous and a dangerous way. Our reaction will not aim to achieve short-term political goals or anything like that. No. Our actions will be based on responsibility before our people, our country. We don't want any saber-rattling. But if somebody thinks that by committing this vile crime they can get away with tomatoes or some restrictions on construction workers or something like that, they're wrong. We will long remember what they did, and they will long regret what they did. We know what needs to be done. We've mobilized our armed forces to defeat terrorists, our security agencies, our law enforcement. But everybody should realize their responsibility. The government, political parties, mass media, everybody. What makes Russia strong is that all ethnic groups should develop freely here. Our diversity, our cultures, our languages, our mutual respect, our dialogue between Russian Orthodox Church, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism. We should confront terrorism and xenophobia in all forms. We should treasure our harmony, our accord between all the ethnic and religious groups. This is the core, this is the strong foundation of the Russian state. In 2016, we'll have a parliamentary election. So I would like to address the leaders of all political parties, everybody who will be involved in the electoral process. I would like to quote outstanding historian Karamzin. This is what he wrote: "If you don't respect yourself, others will not respect you either." Love for your country should not make you blind. You shouldn't tell people that you are best than everybody else. But we Russians should also be aware of where we stand. Yes, we should be aware of all our problems, but we should remain a single nation. We should remember that Russia is above all for us. Competition should be fair and equal, should follow all the rules, we should respect the electorate and respect the outcome of the results. The election should be fully legitimate. Colleagues, I believe that everybody involved will pay special attention to corruption in their platforms, and corruption is really a big factor that deters Russia from developing properly today. Today, government official, judges and so on have to report their incomes, their tax declarations, also construction contracts, other kinds of contracts. If they involve relatives or close family, all this will have to be reported. If there is some conflict of interest, this should immediately attract the attention of overseeing and law enforcement agencies and society as well, of course. Just recently, members of the People's Front reported me about some cases they uncovered where there were some violations. So I would ask the prosecution service and law enforcement in general to respond to such cases promptly. Law should be hard on those who caused damage, or of course it also should be humane to those who just made a mistake. Today, every other criminal case that goes to court involves some insignificant petty crimes, and people, some of them very young, go to prison. When they stay in prison, and this criminal record in general have a negative effect, it's usually on their future lives and cause them to commit more crimes. And I would ask you to decriminalize some of the crimes, reclassifying them as administrative offenses. But there is an important but here. If they commit the same offense again, this will be regarded as a criminal offense now. Courts should be more objective. I suggest we strengthen the institution of a jury and expand the list of cases that the jury court can review. And I know that human rights activists insist that we should have 12 members of the jury, but it's not always easy to come up with 12 people, and this is actually quite expensive. So we could consider reducing the number of the members to 5 or 7 members of the jury, but they should be fully independent in making their decision. Colleagues, last year we faced serious economic challenges. Oil prices dropped, prices for other export commodities dropped, and Russian financial institutions no longer have access to international borrowing markets. I know that we are facing difficult times today. This affects our economy and living standards of our people in general. I realize that many people ask these questions: when will we be able to overcome the current difficulties and what needs to be done to get there. The situation is difficult, but like I said earlier, it's not critical. Even today, we see some positive trends. The exchange rate has stabilized. Inflation rate is decreasing. Compared to 2014, capital flight has been reduced. But this doesn't mean that we should relax and sit back and just wait for the situation to improve miraculously. Such an approach is unacceptable. We should be ready that commodity prices and external restrictions will continue for a long period of time. Without changing anything, we will spend all our reserves and our economic growth will fluctuate around zero. But this is not all. We should also consider global trends. We see the global economy changing quickly. We see new economic partnerships emerging. Fundamental changes taking place. Today, countries secure their niches in the international division of labor. Russia should not be vulnerable. We should do what we need to get done today. We should use our competencies, our advantages, which may not be there tomorrow. Of course, the government should listen to people, should explain to people what is happening today, why we are doing what we're doing. We should regard people as our equal partners. What should be our key priorities? First, competitive production is still concentrated in commodity-producing industries. If we change the structure of our economy, this will allow us to address different social issues, create jobs, and improve the living standards of our people.
It's very important that we have success stories in agriculture, industry, in SMEs, small and medium enterprises. But the most important issue is to increase the number of such enterprises in every sector. And certainly our import substitution and export support programs must work hard to achieve this goal. Number two, a number of industries are now at risk. Construction in particular, automobile industry, light industry and railroad construction. The government needs to provide specific target programs and the financing has been allocated. We need to support low-income people, the most vulnerable groups of our population, and certainly we need to make benefit programs more targeted. We need to take into account the needs of people with disabilities. We need to focus on their vocational support and training. We have done a lot to improve demographics, healthcare and education. The main benchmarks for these sectors have been set in the May documents of 2012. Certainly we need to adjust those documents. The level of responsibility and the standards must be increased. And I would like you to focus on them and focus on improving and fulfilling these targets. Certainly, we need to focus on fiscal sustainability. Now, if you look at 2016, the deficit should not be higher than 3%, even if our revenues are lower than expected. I would like you to take this into account and to focus on it. Overall, I urge all of you, the members of the Federation Council and the deputies of the State Duma, you need to focus on this. Fiscal sustainability, and the overall stability of the country are interrelated. So think of this. Budget planning. Now, every cycle of budget planning must start with priorities. We need to toughen control over the movement of state funds, including federal and regional subsidies to agriculture and specific industries. They need to be transferred to the end users only via treasury accounts, so there should be no misappropriation. Very often we lose billions of rubles due to misappropriated customs on lubricants and other products. We need to introduce a new common mechanism of administrative customs duties and excise taxes. There are various options. We have discussed them, so I'm expecting that the government will submit their proposals. In the coming years, the tax environment should not change for the business community. Number 5, we need to bolster confidence and trust between the business community and the authorities. This year, we have completed the plans that were set forth for our initiative to improve the business climate. We see that there are good trends, but we should need to move forward together with the Agency for Strategic Initiatives and the business organizations need to make sure that the appropriate laws are enforced. I believe that the freedom of entrepreneurship is a major economic and social issue. We need to expand those liberties, and this is our solution to any restrictions that someone is trying to place on us. That's why we have now set up a cooperation on the development of small and medium enterprises, and I urge the governors and state companies and banks to provide any kind of assistance to this cooperation. Entrepreneurs currently, according to surveys, don't see any significant progress in terms of supervision and control. Well, we've been talking about that for a long time, when we've been cutting supervision and barriers, but we may cut them in one area, but there are even a bigger number in other areas. There is even a whole army of controllers. It doesn't mean we should not oversee the business community, but I expect that by July 2016 the government will submit a list of duplicating functions that could be removed. And one of our business communities have prepared a list for 2016. The law enforcement have opened almost 200,000 cases on economic crimes, and out of 200,000, 46,000 were only brought to court. So and some of the cases collapsed during the court proceedings. So only 15% were proven. It means that 83% of entrepreneurs have lost their business. It means they were cornered and they were pressurized and then they were let go. And certainly we don't need this to improve the business climate, and it only undermines the business climate, and I'd like the law enforcement to focus on this. The prosecutor offices should use all of its tools to make sure the investigation is appropriate. There have been a long debate on it. Certainly the prosecutor's office needs additional tools and additional functions. That's what they're trying to do. As you know, we've tried to separate the prosecutor's office and the investigative committee. And certainly the prosecutor's office has additional functions. They can discard certain cases. But we need to analyze the practice. Now, if we talk about economic crimes, arrest should only be used in extreme cases. We can use home arrest, house arrest, or any other restrictions like a travel ban. We need to protect our citizens from fraudsters, and we need to respect and to protect the rights of those who lead the business in a proper way. Last year we declared an amnesty of capitals that are supposed to come back to Russia, but the business community is reluctant to return the capitals, which means that there's not enough guarantees, and I see that there are a lot of debates in the community right now. And what is being said is that some of the decisions that we took are a little bit better than the previous decisions, but it's still not enough. And so the government needs to consult the Supreme Court, the law enforcement agencies, and the business community, and to adjust the decisions. And I would like to extend the amnesty for another 6 months. Colleagues, the government will provide as much support as possible to those who want to move forward and be leaders. And that's what we're doing together with business community, based on the needs and the goals that our country is facing. We are providing support for our import substitution program. We have a fund that supports the industry. We need to provide another 20 billion rubles to support this program. We also ensure tax and other kinds of support and benefits for the entrepreneurs who want to take part in the import substitution program. There is a mechanism of special investment program, and regions can decrease down to zero the revenues tax, so that investors could have a payback period as soon as possible. Certainly, regions are very concerned with their revenues, but they need to have an incentive to bolster their economic base. And certainly, even if the economies of the regions grow, federal subsidies should not decrease. The government needs to have the right to buy up to 30% of the products created as part of special investment contracts. As for the rest, this has to be exported to external markets, so the companies still have the stimulus and the need to cut their costs. And when similar programs were introduced in other countries, in order to get support from the states, they had to meet tougher conditions. A certain portion of the output should be sold, was supposed to be sold at external markets. Why? Well, that's an incentive for a manufacturer to produce high-quality products. We said that we have a bit different conditions than in other countries who introduce tougher measures, but we need to proceed from the premise that the products produced should be at the top international level in terms of quality. So we will support competitive industries and enterprises. Certainly no one should think that they could be able to sell substandard products for 3 times the price to the state. Russia must be winning international markets, and those who want to take part in this effort will get support from the Russian Export Center. We need to make this as a KPI, one of the major key performance indicators. the business community asked us to set up an agency for technology development, and we should do this. It will assist in purchasing licenses, technologies and engineering services. Russian products and services must be sold to international market. This must be the foundation for the Russian economy. Certainly we need to dispel stereotypes. And certainly if we believe in ourselves, we will achieve a great result. And a very illustrative example is our agriculture. 10 years ago, half of the food was imported from abroad. We critically depended on the imports. Right now, Russia is among the exporters. Last year, the total amount of exports was 20 billion US dollars, and that's a quarter higher than our arms sales, or a third higher than our gas exports. So I would like to thank the agricultural producers for this achievement. We need to set a nationwide task, and by 2020 provide Russia with all of the food made by domestic producers. So we have vast water and land resources. And this is the foundation for us to become the biggest of organic, high-quality products and foods. And some Western producers have long forgotten how to produce them. And we well know that the demand for these kind of products is steadily increasing. But in order to ensure this, we need to target those farms and enterprises that have a high level of efficiency. Now, that's the foundation for the support of the agriculture. And I'm referring to medium and small enterprises. Everyone should be efficiency. We need to cultivate millions of acres that are currently idle. Many farms and many regions are not doing anything. We've been talking about that for decades, but nothing has been changed. So if there's an owner of a land that doesn't use this land should be sold. So we need to take back that land and sell all this land at an auction to those who have the desire and the capability to cultivate the land. So by June the 1st of 2016, the government should provide a list of proposals including the necessary legislation, and I call upon the members of the Federation Council and the deputy of the State Duma to introduce amendments into the appropriate legislation. We need to have our own technology of cultivating and harvesting crops. And certainly we need to have new technologies in breeding cattle. We need to tap the potential of the business community, the Russian Academy of Sciences and the Russian research institutions. In my previous address, I said that we launched our technology initiative. And certainly it will take 15 to 20 years to implement the breakthrough that will be achieved. But certainly we see even today that there are a lot of teams that can come up with cutting-edge ideas. So we could introduce a lot of energy-efficient technologies, and Russia could be the pioneer in many areas, even in the coming years. Certainly we need to modernize our enterprises. We have more than 24 of development institutions, but some of them have become a dump of bad debts. We need to upgrade these streamline the work of these institutions, and the government is doing that. We need to certainly tap into the investment potential of domestic savings, and I'd like to request the central bank and the government to come up with a program on how to use and how to improve the market of corporate bonds. And certainly it must be profitable for citizens to invest into it. But the coupon yield should not be taxed. In transport, construction and agriculture, we have dozens of major projects in the pipeline. They must produce a positive effect, not just for specific industries, but overall to the development of big territories. And it must be private market projects. To increase efficiency, we need to introduce target amendments. They need to remove barriers and assist in developing infrastructure so that the products are later sold to external markets. Sometimes, certainly, one ministry cannot resolve issues, and that's why we need to introduce a mechanism of supporting large-scale major projects. We need to have a special office set up for this. And I would like to call upon Mr. Medvedev to introduce his proposals on this issue. And certainly, e-trade, e-commerce is an efficient tool. We have a lot to offer, and Russian companies need to internationalize. Colleagues, we welcome foreign investors who have come to Russia for the long term, even despite the challenges that we are facing at the moment. We very much appreciate their friendly approach, and certainly they see some of the benefits in Russia. To unleash additional opportunities to increase and grow our economy, our country is taking part in integration processes. We've now moved to a completely new level within the Eurasian Economic Union. We have a free movement of capital, goods and labor across the countries of the Union. And we have agreed to develop our Eurasian Union together with the Silk Road of that's the initiative of China. Next year we'll hold the ASEAN summit, and I'm sure we'll have a joint positive agenda of cooperation.
I suggest we start consultations with the SCO, ASEAN, and new countries about to join the SCO talks regarding new economic partnership. Together, our countries account for about 1/3 of global production in PPP terms. We could optimize the movement of goods across borders. We can harmonize our standards and open access to each other's labor and capital markets. Of course, this partnership should be equal and should respect each other's interests. For Russia, such a partnership would create fundamentally new opportunities to supply food, energy, engineering services, healthcare services, and tourist services to Eastern countries, and play a leading role in forming new technology markets. And also this will reroute some trade channels via Russia. We will develop our infrastructure, logistics centers like Azov Sea, Black Sea, Murmansk, hubs, modern seaports on the Baltic Sea, in the Far East, enhance our air transportation systems in the Arctic and other areas. We will consider the situation with our river transport at one of the upcoming State Council meetings. The Arctic Sea route will also play an important role. We'll extend some benefits that Vladivostok enjoys currently to other ports in the Far East. This is a request that some companies contacted us about, companies that operate in this strategic area. It is extremely important for Russia to develop this region socially and economically. Investors are interested in new mechanisms that we offer there, including priority development territories. I would ask the government to find ways to offer better tariffs for areas in the Far East where they are much higher than on the average in Russia. And also, I would ask the parliament to consider offering land to people for free in the Far East. We've invested a lot of funds to develop Vladivostok and Khabarovsk, and people really see changes taking place there. Komsomolsk on Amur is another city where we need to do the same. This is a high-tech city that produces products which are in much demand, and it also has a well-developed defense industry. However, infrastructure there is underdeveloped. This applies to sports, culture, healthcare facilities. All those things are not up to the standards of Komsomolsk on Amur. This is why it's hard to attract young people to work there. And the companies operating in this area really need young people. So I believe we need to focus our resources and use them to address different issues in this city. Of course, we will not be able to resolve all the issues today or tomorrow, but it's important for us to realize what needs to be done there. Colleagues, we have a long-term agenda that should never depend on our election cycles, or the current situation. And obviously, this priority is to preserve our nation and help our future generation to develop. This will determine the future of any country, and our country is no exception. So let me start with demographics. For 3 years in a row, we've had natural growth. Yes, it's not that big, but it's growth nonetheless. I'd like to emphasize that according to estimates, we were supposed to face another demographic crisis by now. We would have an echo of the 90s in one generation. And those were predictions that specialists gave us, even in the United Nations. But we don't see this happening, primarily because half of the children born today are second or third children in the families. So families want to have children. They believe in the future. They believe in their country, and they expect that the government would support them. Next year, the maternity benefit program will expire. It covered over 6 million families in Russia, including some in Crimea and Sevastopol. But we realize, of course, that these efforts are not sufficient to overcome the demographic difficulties of the past. Of course, we realize that this is a heavy burden for our budget. This is, and like we said earlier, we have to consider whether we will be able to sustain this burden. Yes, we can do that. I think we should extend the maternity benefit program for at least 2 more years. Another important element of our demographic policy is developing preschool education. We've opened new kindergartens for about 800,000 children, providing places in kindergartens for all those families. And I know that Mr. Medvedev, as the head of the government, paid special attention to this program, and I thank you for doing that. But we still have families who face this issue. They can't get their children into kindergarten. And as long as this problem exists, we can't relax. So I would ask the government and the governors to pay special attention to this issue. Now a few words about healthcare. Our overall goal is to increase life expectancy, and over the past decade we increased it by over 5 years, and next year, according to some preliminary estimates, it will exceed 71 years. But the problems that we need to address, we still have a lot of them. Next year, the Russian healthcare system will switch completely to medical insurance principles, and companies, insurance companies that work in this area should protect the interests of their clients, including cases where clinics refuse to provide necessary medical services. And if things like that happen, those clinics should, in some cases, be even banned from working in the system. Next, we started providing high-tech medical assistance. We used to have 60,000 high-tech surgeries in 2005. Then this number increased to 715,000 by 2014, and people don't even have to wait to get this high-tech surgery. But still, there are surgeries that cost a lot, and they're performed usually in the central hospitals in major cities. So I suggest we considered this issue for a very long time. We considered where to find additional funds. We have members of the government here, we have governors here. You all know how it really works. It's a territorial-based system, so it supports territorial clinics first and foremost. So chiefs of federal central clinics where these high-tech surgeries are performed, they worry a lot because they don't get sufficient funds. So what we suggest is to finance such centers and to perform such surgeries. We suggest that we set up a special federal fund in the insurance systems. And I would ask our parliament to pass all the necessary amendments the next spring. But even that is not enough, because as we make these decisions, people still need help. So we need to make sure that they receive necessary medical assistance directly from the federal budget before we make all the necessary decisions. You also know that the National Healthcare Project provided new equipment for the ambulance service. We purchased a large number of modern ambulances and so on. Of course, these vehicles require repairs. This is what provinces should do. They are responsible for taking care and providing necessary funds to do this. When we did this 10 years ago, we had this agreement that we'll make this investment from the federal budget, but then provinces will be required to support and provide necessary repairs after that, and this did not happen. I know that your situation is difficult, but like I said earlier, you have to get your priorities straight. You can't just wait for the federal budget to come in and help you again. Of course, in some cases we may have to do that, but this is not what we agreed on. Anyway, I would ask both the government and provinces to review this issue and work together to address, because people complain that sometimes they can't understand why clinics have to be combined, or cultural, social centers have to be combined, consolidated, and so on and so forth. We keep talking about the need to change the structure of those organizations. In some cases, they are overblown, and that's true, but we have to be very careful in dealing with this issue. We have to realize that to achieve certain benchmarks, you don't have to do that every time, and then people would have to travel by hundreds of kilometers to get proper medical help. I would ask you to take this very seriously, and for the government to prepare and present their proposals on developing healthcare institutions in different parts of Russia. We need to find the right way, a legal way, for us to do that. Helping aged people, disabled people, families with children. We should let sometimes NGOs participate because they work more efficiently, they don't have that much bureaucracy, they really care about people. In November we had a forum, and based on some recommendations I would suggest the following. We will launch a special presidential grant program to support NGOs working in small towns and rural areas. Second, NGOs that have a proven record will have a special legal status with the government, and they will enjoy certain benefits and preferences. And finally, I think it would be appropriate to send about 10% of local social programs to NGOs, so that NGOs could be more involved in those social programs. We all know existing laws. We're not imposing anything, but I would ask municipal and local authorities to consider this. On September 1st this year, I had a meeting, in Sochi at the Gifted Children Center, Sirius. We really have very talented children and young people, and we have to do our best to make sure that our children today get the best education possible, engage in creative activities, can choose a profession they like, and achieve self-fulfillment, no matter where they live, no matter how much their parents make. They all should enjoy equal opportunities for a good, solid start in their lives. Every year we have more and more school children. We'll have 3.5 million more school children in the near future, and this is great. But it's important that this growth does not have a negative effect on the quality of school education. The level of our school education should continue to grow. We need more schools, more places for school children in our schools, and we've prepared a special program for that. Next year, the federal budget will provide additional funds to repair old schools and build new ones. Will provide additional 50 billion rubles for that. But I suggest we take a broader look at all those issues. It's not enough to have comfortable buildings for education. You need personnel, you need teachers, you need faculty, you need breakthrough technologies, and you need opportunities for creativity, athletic activities, additional education. And we should take all the positive elements of what we had during the Soviet period, pioneer clubs and so on and so forth. Of course, it all should be modern, and we should get businesses and universities involved in this work. Let me mention something positive. We see that more and more young people are interested in engineering and this kind of professions, and the number of graduates who are interested in engineering and technical specialities has doubled over past years. It is important for us to use this kind of technical competitions between school children to help our school children, especially in high school, to find their profession. I suggest we call this program Young Professionals. This is very important. In short, Russian schools should use vocational training and use this to develop our country's future. This is what our young people want and need, and this is what our economy needs for proper development. These young people will have to face difficult, complex issues, and we have to prepare them to be first, to be the best in their profession, and proper people with a strong moral Foundation colleagues, we often had to make an important choice. In 2014, for example, when we had the reunification with Crimea, Russia declared to the whole world that we are a strong nation with a history of thousands of years, a nation that stands united by common goals and common values. Today, again, we are strong when we are engaged in an open confrontation with international terrorism. We make decisions, we implement these decisions, and we know that it is up to us to deal with the issues we face today. But we can only do this together. Let me give you another quote. This is quite unexpected, even for me. These are words that were said by a person who is very far from politics, Dmitry Mendeleev. And he said this 100 years ago. Here's what he said. If we are disunited, we'll be destroyed immediately. Our strength is in unity. We should be like an army, like a family. And this will make our nation grow. We are a peace-loving nation. These are wonderful words that accurately describe our situation today. At the same time, Russia is part of the changing global world. We are aware of all the difficulties of the scale of the current issues. Development always faces difficulties and obstacles, but we will rise up to the challenge. We will be creative and effective. We will work hard for our common good and for Russia. We will go on together, and together we will certainly win. Thank you.